Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of the viewers from around the world. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of JForex Indicators Explained, we will be considering one derivative of the Aroon indicator. In the last session, I had explained to you the properties, the editing options, the possible uses of the Aroon indicator. Now, we will be looking at a derivative of it. The name is Aroon Oscillator. It is derived using the Aroon up and Aroon down indicators. So those two constituents are used in this indicator as well. But of course, these are oscillators, so it will have the values oscillating between two defined levels, the 100 on the upper side and minus 100 on the lower side. So let us now head to the JForex 4 platform, which has been designed and developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the newer version of the earlier platform. This is a USD JPY chart drawn on the hourly candlestick, and on the bottom side you can see the Aroon oscillator in place. Its values will be, as I said in my introductory remark, will be oscillating between 100 on the upper side and minus 100 on the lower side. So this is a bounded indicator. The values can't go beyond this predefined range. This is the bottom, this is the top, and in between lies everything for us to make a trading decision. And our job is to look for the opportunities where we feel the probability of making money is much higher than the probability of losing money. And to that extent, we can take the help of our own oscillator to look for optimum entry and exit points. The interpretation of this indicator is fairly simple, and you might have even guessed it. The value above zero is considered to be indicative of the bullish bias in the underlying instrument, in this case use the JPY. So now onwards, instead of underlying instrument, I will simply refer to USD JPY, but it can be any instrument. You can take any instrument of your choice, Euro USD, Euro JPY, or index commodity, any instrument of your choice. Now for this session, I am using the USD JPY as the instrument of my choice. Okay. So here, if we see that the Aroon oscillator value is below zero, then that will indicate that USD is turning bearish, or the underlying bias is bearish on the hourly time frame on the calculation period of 14. So we have the calculation period also in consideration, and that's the time period which is used to look at the price value, the price volatility, and using that we get these indicators output value. The indicator takes into account the highs and the lows formed over the calculation period, in this case 14. So while determining the trend of the indicator, it will be taking into consideration the highs and low, and where is the recent price move compared to those highs and lows of the given time horizon. And here you can see that for last 14 candlesticks, the high will happen to be around this 140.8, and the low will be around 140. And here our indicator is going to drop sharply, as the range was quite narrow, and we saw that in 2 hours the trend changed as per the Aroon oscillator's interpretation, where we saw the value dipping from closer to 100 to below zero in a short span of time. So it is basically dependent on how close the value of the last hourly close is to the high or low. If the value is much closer to the recent high, then the oscillator will indicate that the trend is favorable to bulls. That is, for the formation has been of higher highs and higher lows, and even the current price is quite close to the higher value. So the basic interpretation is that it is likely to continue forming higher highs, and this upward momentum is likely to be sustained. And when we see the change or turnaround in these sentiments, when the closing value starts to approach the lower value of the given calculation period, then that is indicative of bearish bias creeping in the USD JPY. So here we get this sharp dip, and as a result of that, the Aroon oscillator value dips to minus 21 from 85. But just as it doesn't really go anywhere, and the range remains shallow or narrow, and in course of time, again we see the USD JPY climbing back on the higher side. So again we see the Aroon oscillator jumping side from negative to positive, and here we get this change. Now, if we look at the historical values, we will be observing that this has been the case more or less. So we can utilize this Aroon oscillator to define the trend change. If you want to utilize the zero as the dividing factor, you can take the trades as and when the trend changes from bullish to bearish. You can start to look to initiate the sell trade, and when the trend changes from bearish to bullish, you can start looking for opportunities to go long. And it is not that you have to take the trade precisely at the moment of this crossing over from one side to other. You can add additional factors which will help you in refining or optimizing the entry and exit points. So the clear interpretation is this, that much like other oscillator, this is also going to be helpful for looking at the trend, and the strength of the trend is going to be indicated by how close the value is to 100 or 0 or minus 100. If we have the output of the Aroon oscillator closer to the 100, that means the recent candle closing value is quite close to the recent high or the calculation period high. That is the indicative of strong bias on the upper side. If we have the closing value on the lower side, then the Aroon oscillator output is going to be closer to the zero, sorry, not zero, minus 100, and of course that is indicative of strong bearish sentiments prevalent in the USD JPY. So both these things can be done, and you can also try to look for overbought or oversold scenarios, but it is a bit difficult with this indicator, as you might have observed that sometimes when the trend is strong, the formation will continually generate higher highs, and on the lower side lower lows whenever the sentiments are bullish. And as a result of that, we will have these output values closer to the exponent values, but no change is visible inside. The trend will continue in the same direction. If it is bullish, then the output will be closer to 100, as we will have continuous formation of higher highs. And when the trend is bearish, we will have the output closer to minus 100, as we will have the closing value closer to the lower lows, and that is going to be sustained. So it becomes pretty, or at least somewhat risky, to go for the contra trend trades using this indicator. But for judging the momentum, the strength of the momentum, it is a good indicator to work with. So now let us head to the editing panel. We will see what are the editing options provided to us to look for the editing tools and customization which is possible with these editing options. So here is the time period. Time period is 14, and we have the calculation period defined at 14. If we want to increase it to get a better idea of the volatility over a larger time span, we can increase the calculation period. And now the oscillator's output value will be drawn using these range over last 24 hours. So if we have the recent hourly output closer to the 24 hours high, then the output of the Aroon oscillator is going to be closer to 100. And if we have the current or last few hours have been closer to the low of the range, then we will have the Aroon oscillator value in negative territory and closer to minus 100. So both these things are quite kind of very important while making these judgment using these Aroon oscillator indicator. So you can vary the calculation period and you will get an idea of what the range has been and how close the current closing value on the hourly basis is to the high or low of the particular calculation range. If you want to reduce it, you can reduce it, you can increase it. So depending on what time frame you are working with, you can try out various observation and something you will find interesting and useful to take the trading decisions. You can go for lower time frames as well, and even in intraday scenario the indicator is likely to work quite well. So here we have these Aroon oscillator values jumping from one side to other, even though not much of an price action has happened, simply because we consider the last 15 candlestick blocks of 15 minutes each, and if the value now starts to shift closer to the higher side of the range, we will have the Aroon oscillator jumping side from bearish to bullish. And when the scenario will change and whatever is the given range, if the price drops to closer to the low of the range, we will have the Aroon oscillator value entering into the negative territory, dipping below the zero level. So that's how this indicator works, and various editing options which are provided to us. Mostly we can increase or decrease the calculation period depending on what is our time horizon for taking the trades. Now coming to the other customization options, the output can be made more stylish. If you don't really like plain simple this dull blue line, then you can style it up and increase or decrease its weight. Transparency can also be customized. Then comes the level option. There is not much on the level side. Advanced editing options, we can opt for the recalculate on new candle only. In that case, the output of the current candle will remain constant throughout the calculation, throughout the current candle period. But whenever new candle will take shape, we will have the output defined, newly defined, and then that will be the output value for that given time period of the candle. Highlight the time period zone, whatever is the calculation period, it will be highlighted. If we go for this option, calculate from custom data, you can customize the indicators input values. You can go for the instrument from the chart, or you can keep it fixed to use the JPY. The time period which is used to calculate the indicator can also be simply used from the chart, or regardless of what is the chart's candlestick period, you can hard code it, you can define it, and it will work just fine. So suppose if the chart is of lower time frame, but you want the Aroon oscillator to be of the higher time frame, then you can work with that kind of system also. Here this Aroon oscillator is being drawn using the 4 hourly candlestick data, even though the chart is of 15 minutes only. Time zone can be set as per your requirement. Wherever you reside, you can take a local time zone into consideration and use it for charting purposes. On shorter periods, if the candlestick of the charting period is lower compared to what we have used as the calculation period for the indicator, in that case, the value, the output of the Aroon oscillator can be displayed at custom period end, the start, middle, or on each new candle. So you can choice and define the output for to be displayed. The spread side can be ask or bid, or you can simply use it from the chart. If you want the indicator to be shown on all periods, then you have to opt in for this. and if you opt out of this, then you have to specify on which time frame the indicator should be visible. Now I have opted for 15 minutes and 4 hourly. So only on 15 minutes and 4 hourly time frame, the output of this Aroon indicator, Aroon oscillator will be plotted on the chart. But if I change it to say 30 minutes, you will see that the output of the Aroon oscillator will vanish from the chart. And again, if I restore it back to 15 minutes, it will be back into the picture. So that's how this customization option works. Now let me go back to the editing panel. So here, now again I will opt in for this. All right. So guys, that's it from my side for possible uses of this indicator. Of course, there is not exhaustive. You can always come up with new uses, new properties, new ways to interpret the indicator, and that's what you should be doing. You should explore these indicators uses, the oscillators uses, and the customization option, and try out what are the formations you can rely on, and after good enough observation you will be in a better position to take the informed trading decisions using these indicator. So give it a try and let let me know how it goes. So that's it from my side for today's session. If you have any query or any idea to share, you can write back to me in the feedback section, and I will be more than happy to take the discussion forward. Before I sign off, I would also like to remind that for further coverage of the market developments, you can check out the Dukascopy Analytics page. We are also available on the Facebook for checking out this newly released platform. The link is there in the bio. So that's it from my side. Signing off for the day. I will be back tomorrow with a new indicator, new uses, new explanations. Everything will be new. So stay tuned. We have a interesting technical session coming up right after this. So do watch it. Thank you all for joining in. I'll be back tomorrow.